Late adolescence is a period of profound physiological and hormonal maturation, during which the body fine-tunes appetite regulation, energy balance, and metabolic homeostasis. Emerging research indicates that continuous exposure to ultra-processed foods, UPFs, during this critical window may fundamentally disrupt these regulatory systems, creating a mismatch between energy intake and energy need that predisposes individuals to overconsumption, weight gain, and long-term metabolic dysfunction. Far from being a matter of simple choice or willpower, these effects reflect deep biological interference with hormonal signaling, particularly involving ghrelin, leptin, and insulin, the core hormones that govern hunger, satiety, and nutrient utilization. Ghrelin, often called the hunger hormone, is secreted primarily by the stomach and signals the brain to initiate food intake. In a healthy system, ghrelin rises prior to meals and falls after food consumption, helping the body maintain energy homeostasis. Ultra-processed foods, with their high sugar, fat, and refined carbohydrate content, can disrupt this rhythm. Rapid absorption of sugars triggers acute spikes in blood glucose and insulin, which initially suppress ghrelin. However, because these foods are quickly metabolized, ghrelin levels rebound faster than normal, creating a false sense of hunger even when caloric needs are met. Repeated exposure trains the body to anticipate rapid energy surges, conditioning adolescents to seek food at short intervals and promoting frequent snacking independent of true physiological need. Over time, this leads to a chronic state of heightened hunger cues, driving eating behavior that is increasingly divorced from homeostatic regulation. Leptin, the hormone produced by adipose tissue that signals satiety and energy sufficiency to the brain, is similarly undermined by a diet rich in UPFs. Normally, leptin rises in response to adequate fat stores and meal consumption, helping the brain suppress further intake. However, diets high in sugar and refined fats induce leptin resistance, particularly in adolescents whose bodies are still calibrating energy balance. When leptin signaling is impaired, the brain perceives a state of energy deficit even when energy stores are sufficient, resulting in overconsumption and diminished ability to recognize fullness. The combination of leptin resistance and dysregulated ghrelin creates a dangerous hormonal environment. Adolescents are biologically cued to feel hungry and continue eating even after consuming sufficient or excessive calories. Insulin dynamics are also critically affected by continuous UPF intake. Insulin regulates glucose uptake and storage and interacts closely with both ghrelin and leptin to maintain energy homeostasis. High glycemic load from refined carbohydrates and added sugars causes repeated insulin spikes, followed by rapid declines in blood sugar. This cycle promotes further appetite, particularly for sweet and energy-dense foods, and encourages fat storage over energy utilization. Chronic exposure can lead to reduced insulin sensitivity, impairing the body's ability to regulate glucose and further amplifying hunger signals. Adolescents in this state experience both metabolic and neurological reinforcement to eat more frequently, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of overconsumption and metabolic strain. The behavioral consequences of these hormonal disruptions are profound. Adolescents with continuous access to UPFs often exhibit eating patterns characterized by snacking between meals, preference for energy-dense foods, and eating in the absence of hunger. Reward-driven food cues become dominant, overriding internal satiety signaling. Neural circuits that govern impulse control and appetite regulation are still developing during late adolescence, making young people particularly susceptible to these manipulations. The biological reinforcement of hyper-palatable food consumption effectively rewires appetite regulation, reducing sensitivity to natural cues and increasing the likelihood of compulsive or hedonic eating. Environmental and societal factors amplify the danger. Schools, universities, convenience stores, and digital food marketing create near-constant exposure to ultra-processed foods. Packaging, portion sizes, advertising, and easy availability ensure that adolescents can access high-reward foods virtually any time, further reinforcing dysregulated eating patterns. Even motivated adolescents who understand the principles of healthy nutrition are biologically and environmentally challenged to resist constant exposure to foods designed to bypass appetite control. The long-term implications are alarming. Disruption of ghrelin, leptin, and insulin dynamics during late adolescence can establish metabolic trajectories that persist into adulthood, increasing the risk of obesity, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. These hormonal disturbances can also interact with mood regulation and cognitive function, exacerbating emotional eating, stress responses, and sleep disturbances. Once established, these patterns are difficult to reverse. The body and brain adapt to frequent overconsumption of high-reward foods, making later attempts at dietary correction biologically and behaviorally challenging. The warning is urgent and stark. Continuous access to ultra-processed foods during late adolescence is not a harmless lifestyle choice. It is a potent disruptor of fundamental hormonal systems that regulate hunger, satiety, and energy balance. By interfering with ghrelin, leptin, and insulin signaling, UPFs create a biological environment primed for overeating, metabolic dysfunction, and lifelong health vulnerability. Ignoring the interplay of diet, hormonal regulation, and adolescent brain development risks producing a generation whose appetite control, metabolic resilience, and long-term health have been systematically undermined by engineered convenience and flavor. The consequences of this exposure are not temporary. They may set the stage for a lifetime of biological and behavioral struggles against hunger, cravings, and metabolic imbalance.